Hi, I'm Tom, and this is Adult Game Reviews. This week we're doing the best sci-fi games. We went through many rounds of voting on the AGR Patreon and Subscribestar, and I want to thank everyone who took part. After multiple rounds, we narrowed it down to the top 10 for the community, and I made my own top 10 as well. But before we get into that, I've received many questions about, is Eneba legit? Yes, it is. Eneba is a really great way to save some money. Now, not every game you can find cheaper on Eneba, but many you can. One of my favorite games is Hollow Knight. You can buy it for $15 on Steam or $9 on Eneba. There are a ton of deals just like that on Eneba. It's 100% legit and you can save a lot of money. Check it out for yourself over on eneba.com. And if you want to help me out in the channel, you can click on one of the Eneba links down below. I want to thank Eneba for sponsoring the video. Okay, jumping right in, starting at number 10 for the community, that's Cross Realms by Dusk Duck. Cross Realms is only on chapter 3, but there's still close to 8 hours of content currently. This is a true isekai story where you're teleported to another realm. I had a hard time whether I keep this in sci-fi or just put it in fantasy, but the whole world has a unique feeling that I think puts it in the sci-fi category, and it was pretty clear that the community thinks so as well. Number 10 for me is Funko Reagan by Janamu Zura. This is heavy sci-fi. The world building is great, but the visuals might turn some people off. Now, there were a lot of games that could have ended up in the number 10 spot. Moonlight or How to Fix the Future, and I could keep going on, but all are still pretty short on playtime. Funko Reagan, however, has hours of gameplay. Could any one of these other games slide into the top 10 eventually? Absolutely, but for now, I think Funko Reagan is kind of the definition of sci-fi. You can see my review of it down below. Number 9 is Stranded in Space by Wildman. Now, full disclosure, I haven't played Stranded in Space, but there is a ton of content. The main criticisms I've heard is the story starts kind of slow, but eventually picks up. Stranded in Space is another pure example of what sci-fi is. It will also take you somewhere around 50 hours to play it all, which is crazy. I am happy to see it in the top 10 for the community, well deserved. Let me know what you think of Stranded in Space down below. Number 9 for me is Cybernetic Seduction by 1000. Cybernetic Seduction Season 2 is scheduled for a Steam release in October. All I'm going to say about it is that it's just very cool and super stylized. It's kind of like the A-Team meets the Matrix. You play a special agent that has to go into the Matrix and play a different role. You can check out my full review of Season 1 down below. Number 8 for the community is Between Humanity by Debating Panda. Version 0.3 was released in April, and it's a slow burn VN that takes place about 5 years in a dystopian future. And the only reason it's not on my list is I haven't played it yet. But don't worry, I will when I feel like it has enough content. I'm not always successful, but I only try to put games on lists that have at least 8 hours of content. So that review is pretty close. I think one more update might do it. Number 8 for me is Tales from the Unending Void. I've played Tales from the Unending Void a long time ago, at least a couple years at this point, and it still stands out to me as a great sci-fi space game. I am pretty sure that when I catch up to the current level of content, it'll probably rise up on my list, but from what I've played, it doesn't quite crack the top 5. Number 7 for the community is Tales from the Unending Void. I love it when the community and I are on the same page. So if you haven't checked it out, instead of going over to Steam, I would check out Tales from the Unending Void's Patreon. Number 7 for me is Artemis by DigiB. Now, do I think Artemis would probably be higher on my list if it wasn't for the very long development time? Yes. I know Chapter 6 was just released in April, but it was about a year and a half between Chapter 5 and Chapter 6. This likely means I'm not going to be jumping back into Artemis until Book 2 is complete. At that point, it might jump up higher on my list, but not quite yet. Number 6 for the community is Moonlight by Big Back Productions. I streamed Moonlight not too long ago to my followers on Picardo. It feels like a truly sci-fi dystopian future where you play a detective trying to solve a series of murders. Now, there's only one chapter released, which is why it's not on my list, but I do think it has a lot of potential. Now, as I said earlier, I tend to like to wait for at least 8 hours of content, but I'm crossing my fingers for Moonlight to have a very smooth development. Number 6 for me is City of Broken Dreamers. I know some people say the City of Broken Dreamers is boring, but I'm not one of them. It's the only fully completed title on this list. While I do think there's some issues with the pacing, City of Broken Dreamers kind of feels like Cybernetic Seduction and how stylized and cool it feels. If you like sci-fi and you haven't played it, I would try it out for yourself. Number 5 for the community is City of Broken Dreamers. I'm glad that I'm not the only one that appreciates a completed VN, especially one that looks as good as City of Broken Dreamers. Number 5 for me is Subverse by Studio FOW. Subverse is basically a AAA game of the grown-up community. There is so much going on in Subverse. You have RPG mechanics, top-down shoot-'em-up space combat, turn-based combat, and a lot of little extras like the photography studio. Subverse has a lot going for it. The only downside? The pretty cringy dialogue at times, but I think they toned it down a bit as time went on, but maybe that's just me. Number 4 4 for the community is Artemis, and I don't blame the community for having it so high. I think each chapter I played has gotten better and better, but I do think the story can drag early on, and some of the renders can be suspect, but overall, this is a great game, which I have no problem with it being in the top 5. Number 4 for me is Project Passion. I love Project Passion. There's so many games where the main character is kind of a turd, but not here. He is truly a badass. Project Passion is really funny, and I'm invested in all the characters. The only thing that keeps it out of the top 3 for me is I do think the game trades story for spicy content in Season 2. If you want to know more about my thoughts on Project Passion Season 2, you can check my review down below. Number 3 for the community is Ripples by Jester. I love Ripples. This is less space sci-fi and more time sci-fi, like Back to the Future. Seeing the connection from the past to the present is really cool, and all I want to do is see more Darcy, who is one of my top characters in any game I've played. Ripples is great. I just truly wish the development time was faster. Number 3 for me is Cross Realms. I know having Cross Realms higher than Artemis or Project Passion, people are going to flame me for it, but personally, I'm into so much Cross Realms has to offer. The martial arts setting with magic and technology, it reminds me a lot like Ghost in the Shell or Blade Runner. Now, I think Cross Realms leans a bit more into fantasy than a lot of the other games on the list, but I would still say it counts as sci-fi, and at 8 hours of gameplay, it hits my criteria of playtime. Number 2 for the community is Project Passion. While it's not quite that high on my list, I get why the community has it in the top 2. Number 2 for me is Ripples. I love Ripples. Ripples kind of flip-flops from 1 to 2 depending on how I feel that day. So many of the characters stand out, and it's one game I have truly fell in love with. Now, fingers crossed it's going to finish in the next 5 years. Okay, for the community and myself, the number 1 game is Eternum by Charybdis. I know. I wanted to see if I could spice this themed compilation up with something other than Eternum, but it's just so damn good. If Eternum ended today and I didn't get to finish it, I would be a bit sad, but for me, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I've loved what I've played, and I can't wait for it to complete. Unlike my video on games that I'm not going to touch until they complete, I'm not worried about Eternum completing. Charybdis has a good track record and a roadmap for the end. Now, I'm not saying it will finish in the next 5 years. I hope so, but I don't think it will take much longer than that. If you haven't played it, it's worth it. Now, I know some people complain about the very beginning and how it can be slow until you get into Eternum, but give it a shot. I think Eternum is the funniest game out there right now with the great renders, great characters, great story, and great humor. This is truly the top of the genre right now. I'm curious if it will stay that way. All right, that's the list. Let me know down in the comments if we missed any or if there's any you would change in ranking. I want to thank Eneba for sponsoring the video. I also want to thank my backers on Patreon and Subscribestar. If you haven't seen my review of Zero End or Glowing Stones, you can watch them right here. Thanks again. Until next time.